one of the world's foremost advocates for Uyghur people and the founder of Executive Director of the Campaign for Uyghurs. After the Chinese government disappeared her sister and her auntie in a retaliation for her advocacy, Rushan transformed her personal strategy into a global campaign for justice, exposing the atrocities being committed against the Uyghur people. She has become one of the strongest and most courageous voices confronting the Chinese Communist Party's campaign of repression. Please welcome her.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the organizers, and thank you for everyone showing up here today. I am deeply honored to stand beside the Tibetan community as we remember Paul Lodgaranson and the sacrifice he made to stand against the Chinese Communist Party's brutalities. He understood something many of the governments refused to acknowledge. When the world remains silent in the face of oppression, it's courageous individuals who bear the burden of defending the freedom. Lodgaranson's final act was a powerful plea to humanity to recognize and confront the Chinese Communist Party's systematic destruction of Tibetan people, culture, religion, and their fundamental rights. As an Uyghur woman, I recognize Beijing's strategy all too well. What it has done to the Uyghurs, it has done to the Tibetan people, systematically erasing identity, criminalizing their faith, and destroying the foundations of ancient civilizations. This is not ethnic unity. It's genocide by another word. For me, this is not a political issue. It is deeply personal. Almost 8 years ago, when the Chinese Communist Party disappeared more than 1 million innocent people into the concentration camps, 24 members of my husband's family who's standing with me, all disappeared. My parents-in-laws, all of his siblings, their spouses, 14 of his nieces and nephews. As an Uyghur American, when I spoke out about this, and only 5 days later, they disappeared, my own sister and my aunt, just to silence me. Beijing wants my silence, and I will not give that to them because the silence is the oxygen of the tyranny. I know that countless Tibetan families carry the same pain. The Chinese government hopes that time will erase those stories. It will not. Why? That's why this gathering like this matters. When Uyghurs and Tibetans come together, we send a strong message that Beijing cannot control us. Our unity is stronger than its propaganda. I have had the privilege of standing beside Tibetan leaders, advocates, and the survivors, and I am inspired by your resilience. Despite decades of occupation and repression, you have never abandoned your identity, your faith, and your hope. That resilience gives strength to all of us, to Uyghur people, just as I hope our struggle reminds Tibetan people that they are not alone. The international community must understand that What's happening in Tibet and East Turkestan is not history. It's happening right now. Surveillance has become a weapon. Forced assimilation and forced labor have become the state policy. The goal is not simply politically controlling the Tibet or East Turkestan. It is the world domination. They first started the re-education centers taking Tibetan children and erasing the identity and the ethnicity in Tibet. Then they expanded, escalated, and perfected to genocide in my homeland, East Turkestan. Then they demolished the democracy in Hong Kong, now threatening Taiwan. The next is all of us, all the world. The world cannot ignore the people who are struggling to warn, and they try to wake up the conscience of the world. Lord Garangsan's sacrifice must not be forgotten. His message was not only for Tibetans, it was for every person who believes that human dignity is worth defending. Tonight, let this event be more than just the remembrance of Pavel Garangsan, his extraordinary courage and the sacrifice. Let it be our pledge to carry forward the cause for which he gave everything, so Tibet's struggle for freedom is never forgotten. To the Tibetan people, the Uyghurs stand with you. Your struggle is our struggle. Together with Chinese dissidents, Chinese faith, Christians, Southern Mongolians, Falun Gong practitioners, Hong Kongers, and the people of Tibet, we are with you. We will not stop exposing the CCP's crimes. We will not stop until justice prevails. The CCP is only a threat, not only a threat to Tibetans and Uyghurs, it's a threat to the world democracy and the freedom. The world must wake up before it's too late. May Pavel Garangsan's sacrifice awaken conscience, strengthen our resolve, and inspire action. Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free East Turkestan! Free East Turkestan! Free East Turkestan! Free East Turkestan! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Freedom for the world! Freedom for the world! Defend the freedom! Defend freedom! Thank you.
Thank you, Rushan. Our next speaker is a fearless leader in the global movement for Tibetan freedom, co-founder and director of Tibet Action Institute, and former executive director of SFT, Ms. Harula. Please welcome Harula. Haru Jidongla.
Paul Lobgarangzen was a beautiful person, kind, dedicated, totally determined. When I saw footage of his self-immolation posted online, I could not believe my eyes. Like so many of you, I felt so many emotions all at once: shock, horror, sadness, frustration, anger. For those who knew him best, who worked alongside him day after day, month after month in New York and beyond, I know these last weeks have been an overwhelming roller coaster of emotions. Our compatriots in this struggle are the ones who understand us best, both our motivation, our hope, our sadness, our deepest frustrations. Every time they take action and they show up, they give us the encouragement to keep showing up too. Paul Lobgarangzen was always taking action, always showing up. His absence will be felt by you most acutely. And to his friends, his family, and to the community here in New York City who knew him so well, on behalf of Tibet Action, me, my family, my husband, and my 3 boys are here, I offer my deepest condolences. It's hard for people, most people, to understand even a single act of self-immolation. It's nearly impossible to understand. More than 170 Tibetans have taken this most painful action. This is partly because the act itself is incomprehensible, but it's also because Tibetans most often move through this world in a way that belies the depth of the grief and pain we carry over China's genocidal rule in our homeland. For decades now, the vast majority of our people have gone to work, raised their kids, and lived their daily lives in exile with remarkable humor, positivity, love, friendship to their fellow citizens. But just beneath the surface, there lives a constant, terrible, heartbreaking anguish over China's decades-long assault on the Tibetan people, on our nation, on our language, on everything we hold dear and sacred, our religion, our culture, our precious teachers, our scriptures, our temples, our mountains, the grasslands. I know this anguish was especially profound for my Bala, for my father's generation, who knew life in a free Tibet before the Chinese occupation, who knew the truth of Tibet's independence because they lived it. They experienced it. Rungzen, self-sovereignty, firsthand, they lived it. And that was an existence where, for better or worse, Tibetans were in charge of their own lives, where parents decided what was best for their children and could teach them to do what parents everywhere do, to speak like them, to live like them, to worship like them. In Tibet today, Tibetan parents have even been stripped of this right. 3 out of every 4 school-aged children are in China's colonial boarding schools, residential boarding schools. This means an entire generation is being forcibly assimilated. Approximately 1 million Tibetan children. But what it doesn't mean is that Tibetan resistance will end. It doesn't mean that freedom or even Rungzen is impossible. For even if China were to succeed in cutting the mother tongue from Tibetan children and turning them against their own identity, that's a great reason to cheer. For those who can't see, people are cheering because one of Tibet's longest time supporters, dedicated true friend Richard Gere, is here with us.
Mashu. Yeah, Mashu. Hello. Mashu.
Even if China were to succeed in cutting the mother tongue from Tibetan children and turning them against their identity for a time, this next generation will ultimately find their way back to their true selves. Just as Tibetans who grew up during the Cultural Revolution did. Just as those who were sent to the inland boarding schools in China did. They may have to struggle to reclaim their identity, but that struggle will only make them stronger and more resilient. They may have to relearn the language and the teachings. They may not look or sound like what we consider traditional Tibetans to look or sound like, but what matters is that they are Tibetan. They're Pebas. They're people of the snowland. They're descendants of warriors who have survived for thousands upon thousands of years in one of the most extreme environments on this earth. The roots of the Tibetan people run deep into the bedrock of the plateau. They rise again into our sacred mountains, where our deities still reside and are continuing to protect us. I think they're calling us to fight for them, for the land, for the mountains, for the Dharma, and not just because it's good for us, but because it benefits all the world around us too. And I know it may sound far-fetched from where we stand right now, but I'm certain the Tibetan people and the Tibetan nation will outlast this horror of China's occupation. We will outlast the Chinese Communist Party's rule in Tibet. The only thing we have to do is fight, to never give up, never allow them to write our story. Only we do this. For more than 7 decades and against all odds, our relatively small population, numbering approximately 7 million people, has stood against one of the most populous nations, most vicious and violent regimes this world has ever seen, and we're still standing. How? With sheer grit, total determination, deep faith, and true compassion. If we're determined to fight for our rights and freedom and for our language and for our right to be Buddhist and to worship the Dalai Lama when the time, whatever may come, they can't stop us. It's up to us. It's completely up to us. And Lobka Rangzen knew this. And when I think about how to honor his sacrifice, I find myself looking at the life he lived, his devotion to serving the nation and the cause of Tibetan independence, and to his final words, which told us to recommit ourselves to unity, to work harder to get along, to keep celebrating and practicing Tibetan culture, to continue to struggle for the liberation of our homeland. And now the greatest way we can honor his sacrifice is to answer the call. Take action every day, in whatever way you can. And also protect and care for every precious person in our movement. We need every Tibetan to keep living, to keep fighting alongside each other, no matter what comes. I believe Lobka Rangzen's final act was to wake us up to our own potential. It's both a tragic and extraordinary action, and it won't be in vain if it strengthens our resolve to live, to unite, to carry forward the work which he dedicated his life until Tibet is free and independent. Once again. Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet!
Thank you, Ladala. Please welcome Enhib Batu Tohuhok, a lifelong advocate for rights of Southern Mongolian people and the Executive Director of Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center. For decades, he has documented human rights abuses, led international efforts to defend the language, culture, and identity of Southern Mongolian in the face of escalating assimilation. Please welcome Batu.
Jestele Sembechano My name is Iqbal Tojang. I'm a Mongolian from Southern Mongolia. Southern Mongolia, and always known as Inner Mongolia, is another occupied nation under the Chinese colonial regime. We gather here today with very heavy hearts to honor the life and sacrifice of our dear friend Lobka Rangzen. I had the privilege of knowing Lobka for many years. We stood together at a number of protests, demonstrations, conferences, and human rights events. raising our voices for Tibet, Southern Mongolia, East Turkestan, and all oppressed people. He is a man of unwavering courage, compassion, and conviction. Like many of you, I was deeply saddened by his decision to sacrifice his life in an effort to awaken the world's conscience to the suffering of the Tibetan people. His final act was one of profound violent resistance, a desperate call for humanity not to look away. For decades, Tibetans have appealed to the world for justice. Sadly, global leaders have failed to respond with meaningful action. But this does not mean the conscience of humanity is bankrupt. I believe that one day the world will fully awaken to confront the Chinese colonialism and authoritarian expansion, which threaten not only the Tibetans, but also Southern Mongolia, East Turkestan, Hong Kong, and freedom and human rights, democracy, human dignity everywhere. As a Southern Mongolian, I feel the pain of Tibetan people deeply because our people are enduring many of the same tragedies under a nearly 8 decades of Chinese settler colonialism. Our language is being eliminated from education. Our culture is being erased. Our nomadic way of life has been fundamentally altered. Our grassland and environment have been devastated. Our national identity is under relentless assault. In Tibet, Tibetan culture and religion face severe repression, while political freedom and the right of self-determination remain denied. In East Turkestan, Uyghurs have endured mass detention, family separation, and pervasive repression. One of the greatest tragedies of our time is that political and economic interests too often prevent the international community from recognizing and confronting mass atrocities and genocide with the urgency they deserve. Too often, justice is delayed because governments place the strategic interest above moral responsibility. But I refuse to lose hope. I believe that truth is stronger than propaganda. I believe justice is stronger than oppression. And I believe that one day, Tibetans, Southern Mongolians, Uyghurs, and that all oppressed people will be free to determine their political future according to their own democratic will. May Lopa Rangzang rest in peace. Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Southern Mongolia! Free Southern Mongolia! Free Southern Mongolia! Free Southern Mongolia! Free East Turkestan! Free East Turkestan! Free East Turkestan! Free East Turkestan! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! Thank you.
Now, next we welcome Tensher Gyatso, President of International Campaign for Tibet, to share her thoughts and pay respect to the sacrifice of Paulo Ranzala.
A month ago, Paul Lokaranze gave the ultimate sacrifice for Tibet, his precious life. Today, we all know Paul Rangzen was a tireless advocate for Tibetan independence. And we remember him today. We also remember the message he left us. He called on Tibetans to stand in unity, to do what each of us can, in whatever way we can, for Tibet. That message feels even more urgent today. As we all know, the Chinese Communist Party has now put into law the systematic oppression that Tibetans have experienced for decades through the so-called genocidal ethnic unity and progress law. The CCP seeks to accelerate efforts to dismantle Tibetan identity by targeting our language, our culture, and the values that have sustained our people for generations. A people, a nation cannot survive if they are separated from their language, their history, and who they are. And the Chinese Communist Party knows this. Tibetans inside Tibet have long felt the weight of this urgency and have sounded the alarm time and time again. In the past few decades alone, there have been over 170 Tibetans who have resorted to self-immolation in desperate protest, each seeking to draw the world's attention to Tibet and to galvanize global action. Our response, therefore, must be unity. We must strengthen our communities, protect our language, preserve our culture, and ensure that the next generation grows up knowing what it means to be Tibetan. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has always shown us the path forward with compassion, with non-violence, and with the belief that our shared humanity is stronger than oppression. Those principles must continue to guide us as we face the long task ahead. Today, the greatest way that we can honor Po Loka Rangzen is not only by remembering his sacrifice, but by answering his call. I ask Tibetans everywhere to stand together, to stand united. I ask governments and international community not to remain silent as Tibetan identity is systematically dismantled and Tibetan culture faces erasure in our homeland. And I ask every person here to speak out, to stand with Tibet, and to help ensure that Tibetan language, culture, and identity are not only allowed to survive, but to flourish. So I ask you all, let's have unity for Tibet. Unity for Tibet! 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 Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama! 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 Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama!
Our next speaker needs no introduction. Long-time Tibet advocate and international campaign for Tibet board chair. Please join me welcome our keynote speaker and someone who is part of the Tibetan family and the movement, Mr. Richard Gere.
Kashidale. You know, this is a kind of a strange place to be talking about these things, isn't it? But why not? Right in the middle of the kind of the beating heart of New York, of America, within the kind of entertainment of the world, to be talking about something really important. And not just for Tibetans, for everyone. I'm really, really honored to be here with you tonight. And what this means, I mean, it's honoring this extraordinary man. What he has accomplished here in bringing us together is something truly extraordinary. We're here to honor this man, who I don't remember ever meeting. And probably many of us here didn't meet him, have the privilege, the honor of meeting him, yet whose message now asks something of every one of us, to stand together, this sense of unity. That in unity we can accomplish anything, we know that. Every one of us can stand together for Tibet and be a voice, most importantly, for those inside Tibet. We are there serving them, and I don't think we can ever forget that. This extraordinary man, Laptaransen, who I don't think anyone's going to forget this name. And for good reason. He's inspired us all. How moved I was and how much he kind of kicked me in the butt. And said, okay, we've been doing kind of extraordinary things. We're doing things in Washington. We're doing things around the world. We talk to our families. We talk to each other. But it's been a lot of talk. This was an extraordinary sacrifice of action that he demonstrated to us. And frankly, I felt woken up by this, deeply saddened, to be sure, but woken up. And I think we all need to wake up right now. We can wake up.
Yeah, wake up!
We can change this world. Now, what he spoke about, he believed Tibet's future depends on Tibetans and friends of Tibet and all people of conscience standing together with courage and conviction. He obviously loved Tibet so deeply, he refused to let its suffering remain invisible. He wanted the world to understand that Tibet is not simply occupied, this is a civilization at risk. What is at stake is an entire way of understanding the world and each other. The Tibetan language has its own script and a literary tradition stretching back more than 1,000 years. It contains words for states of mind, levels of consciousness, nature of mind that English cannot even begin to translate at this point. Tanka paintings, wood carvings, monasteries built to mirror the Buddhist understanding of the universe, the workings of the human mind, and humanity's place within that bringing together of compassion and wisdom. And this is something I go through all the time. I remember I talked to someone years and years ago about Tibet, and I said, we have to do something. We have to do something. We started Tibet House. We have to do something. They said, well, maybe you could do something at the Museum of Natural History. I said, well, that's very nice, but this isn't a dead culture. This is an alive experiment in the possibilities of the human mind and the human heart. These are not relics of the past. They're living traditions that survive only if someone is free to pass them on. And that's why China's very oddly named ethnic unity law, which in fact does just the opposite, presents such an existential risk. It threatens the very conditions that allow Tibetan language, culture, and identity to survive. When a civilization loses the freedom to teach its own children, humanity loses something it can never ever replace. And that is the price of forced assimilation. With every civilization that disappears, we lose a different way of solving problems, of making meaning, of creating beauty, of new ways that we can live together, create a world community which is based on a mutual survival and joy and happiness and love. And it's not only about the rights of Tibetans, obviously, but Uyghurs. We have wonderful Uyghurs here. We have Mongolians, we have Hong Kongers. We're all in this together. And this is about whether we believe every civilization, that means every civilization deserves the right to exist, to endure, and to thrive. His Holiness often says, and very famously so, that his religion is kindness. And we all feel that immediately. He's not talking about temples or doctrine, but really that warm human heart, kindness. And when you look at the people who learned from him that deep essence of kindness, not the superficial sense, but that deep sense that we're all in this together and we all deserve love and compassion and kindness and joy. When you look at everyone who has learned from him and carried that lesson across the Himalayas into refugee communities, across continents, all the way here to this bizarre place in Times Square right now, you realize that those words were never meant to be just admired. They were meant to be lived deeply inside of us. Because real kindness is not passive. It's not soft. No, real kindness is standing beside those punished for speaking their language, for speaking their faith, for speaking their truth. Real kindness means refusing to accept that nearly 1 million Tibetan children should be separated from their families and sent to Communist Party boarding schools, where they're made to abandon their language, culture, and history. Real kindness is a refusal to look away when China's injustice to dismantle Tibetans' centuries-old culture and push an entire civilization towards extinction. Our other brother, Martin Luther King Jr., he said that the arc of the moral universe bends always towards justice. And I think that's true. I think we can all believe that. But that bending towards justice only happens because people bend it. It doesn't happen on its own. For more than 70 years, Tibetans have kept bending that arc in exile, in monasteries rebuilt from nothing, in classrooms, at TCVs, in communities around the world, in the halls of the United States Capitol, outside the UN, and tonight here in Times Square. But a culture can't survive on admiration alone. Those cute Tibetans, it doesn't quite work that way. No. It takes all of us working beside Tibetans to defend their rights, which is what we've been doing with the international campaign for Tibet for 35 years now. Tibet can't be forgotten. We must preserve a culture, and it's a responsibility of all of us to do that. So tonight I want to ask you to do something. And Pinchala, come up here a second. You're the president of ICT. And this is one of our programs, but I want you to actually make this appeal. We want you to record a video, okay? Because we're in Congress quite a bit, talking to congressmen and senators, and they're very open to this, believe me. We're very rarely have we been in an office that we feel like we're not welcome or they don't understand the Tibetan situation. But they also want to hear from their constituents. So
we're asking you to record a short video asking your members of Congress to co-sponsor the Assuring the Future of Tibet Act and call for the repeal of China's so-called ethnic unity law. So you record a video asking your member of Congress to co-sponsor Assuring the Future of Tibet Act and call for a repeal of China's so-called ethnic unity law.
Okay, look, if you don't know who your congressperson is, contact us and we'll tell you. We'll make it really easy for all of you to do that, but it's really important. They always tell us, well, if we hear from our constituents, of course we'll act. Well, this is your moment. This is your moment to act. So if we can help you with that process, please get a hold of us and we will. When His Holiness accepted the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989, and I had the extraordinary good karma to be there with His Holiness when that happened and feel the seismic change of how people felt about Tibet through His Holiness, obviously. But this was the moment where things, I think, changed quite a bit. In Oslo, 1989, he didn't dedicate that award just to Tibetans. No, he dedicated it to every person struggling for freedom, for dignity, and for peace. Tonight we're here to honor an extraordinary Tibetan, Lhasa Ranzen, in that same spirit of generosity, but speaking truth to power. And not being passive, acting. Now, as controversial as it might be within Buddhist theology, a self-immolation, one cannot question the sincerity and the complete commitment of this extraordinary man to his beliefs. We need to do the same thing, all of us, in our own way. We don't have to self-immolate, but we can call our congressman. We can talk to our neighbors. We can speak out with generosity, with purpose, but we need to act. Now we're going to honor him tonight as we will have been seeing so many speeches about him, and I'm so moved by the people who knew him and respected him. And I was really taken by something that was said over and over again that I want to say tonight. That we honor him by carrying forward the message he asked the world never to forget. Napoyayin. 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 I am a Tibetan. I am a Tibetan. I am a Tibetan. Thank you. But I want to show you one other thing, and I didn't know if I was going to say this, but I do feel like saying it now. I had a bit of a daydream a few days ago, and it was about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And His Holiness was solid, and he glowed, but he was expanding into Dharmakaya. The body wasn't so important anymore. And I had this very clear vision that we were becoming his body. We were becoming his hands. We were becoming his feet. We were becoming his tongue, his mind, his heart. And that is our responsibility. What we've taken from him now, we have to act on in the world with his strength and his power and his skills and his capacities. I am a Tibetan. I'm a follower of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I'm a follower of Shakyamuni Buddha, and I will act. I will act. I will make His Holiness proud of me by acting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. To offer tonight's closing address and to reaffirm our shared commitment to Tibetan independence, please welcome Mr. Jigme Ogila, President of Tibetan National Congress. Please welcome him.
Before I start, I'd like to first acknowledge Michelle from Mayor Mamdani's office. The mayor is on vacation, couldn't be here, but we have representation from Mayor Mamdani's office. Congresswoman AOC couldn't be here, but sends regards. And we have a statement also from Sophie Richardson from the Chinese defenders, and we will post that on our social media. My name is Jigme, and I serve as the president of the Tibetan National Congress. Paul Logarangze was the president of the Tibetan National Congress chapter of New York, New Jersey. And I want to start by appreciating the young organizers of the Tibetan Youth Congress, New York, New Jersey, for organizing this vigil, for getting support from 7 different organizations across New York, and making sure that Tibet's voice is heard from the loudest and the busiest pedestrian crossing in the world. For more than 70 years, Tibetans have been told to accept the unacceptable. We were told that China's occupation is permanent, that Tibetan independence is unrealistic, and that we must lower our expectation, soften our language, and adjust our political demands to what the global governments find convenient. The world asked Tibetans to be patient. We waited, and we waited, and while we waited, China used that time to kill over 1.5 million Tibetans, separated over 1 million children, some as young as 4 years old, from their language, identity, and their families, and put them in colonial boarding schools. They took time to control our monasteries, rewrite our history, erase our language, and every foundation of the Tibetan way of life. This is why Paul Logarangzen believed that the loss of independence was the root of Tibet's suffering. Without political freedom, every other right is weak and can be dismissed. Paul Logarangzen, a lifelong independence activist, sacrificed his life to end that occupation and restore Tibet's independence. Too often, the international community reduces Tibet to a human rights or religious right issues. Governments sometimes express concerns about political prisoners, even colonial boarding schools, and the destruction of Tibetan culture, but refuse to confront the political cause behind all of this, that Tibet is an occupied country and that Tibetans have been denied the right to determine their own future. The United Nations knows that. The governments know that. Political leaders know that. The silence is not caused by the lack of information, but by the lack of courage. These governments have treated China's occupation as normal and expects Tibetans to adjust and accept it. This has been China's greatest victories, and China makes us believe that our resistance is futile and that our freedom is impossible. Paul Logarangzen rejected that lie and that fake narrative. He sacrificed outside the United Nations the most recognized address in the whole planet because he wanted the folks in that institution to not look away and no longer say that we don't know what's happening in Tibet. He made the most extreme and unimaginable non-violent sacrifice after years of peaceful appeals that have been ignored, dismissed by every door of power. This was his wake-up call to the world. This was a call to the citizens of the world. This and the 170 self-immolations prior to that was a message to the world that Tibet is still under some of the most draconian policies under the Chinese occupation. So, how long can the world choose to look away and ignore the 171 human beings who burned themselves to use their own bodies as evidence? How long can the United Nations and governments hide behind weak and useless statements? How long can politicians and activists who claim to oppose occupation, genocide, and oppression lose their moral courage when it comes to China, the world's most brutal and most powerful authoritarian regime? Standing here today at Times Square, the world's busiest, the most glamorous, the most shiniest place, I want to ask the world, why is Tibet denied the outrage and urgency extended to other occupied and oppressed people? Are Tibetan lives worth less? Is our nation less deserving of freedom? And it gives me no pleasure but to call on the world with shame. Shame to everyone in the world who choose silence. And I tell them, you are not neutral. You have chosen China's power over colonialized lives. History will record your silence for what it is, a complicity to China's occupation and genocide in Tibet. Your silence is no longer ignorance. Your silence is violence, and your hands are filled with blood along with the blood of the Chinese regime. They say that Tibetans are peace-loving people. But even Tibetans have a breaking point. We are angry, we are frustrated, and we're exhausted. But do not mistake our non-violence for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for surrender. We are peaceful people, but we are not defeated people. We will commit to Paulo Garanze and all the martyrs to not reduce their sacrifices to photographs, vigils, a tweet, names spoken and then forgotten. We will carry forward the struggle and demand for everything that they gave their life to end China's occupation and restore Tibet's independence. We also know that the world will not hand us our freedom. The United Nations or the US government will not rescue us. And China will never willingly return the country it invaded from us. That responsibility belongs to each and every one of us. We must continue to organize with discipline, speak in unity, and build a movement powerful enough to shake the conscience of this world and shake the foundation of Beijing. So from Times Square, this is our message. to Beijing, to the United States, and every leader who chooses to choose silence. Tibet has not surrendered. Tibet has not surrendered, will not surrender, and will never surrender. And as long as one Tibetan, one single Tibetan remains on this planet, the Tibetan nation and the Tibetan movement will continue. And with that, I will pray for the Lord. I pray for the long life of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, and to commit to our promise to bring him back to the Potala Palace and reunite him with our siblings in a free and independent Tibet. Paranze! Paranze Galo! Paranze! Paranze Galo! Paranze! Paranze Galo!
That is our brother. Man. That is a Tibetan. That is a Tibetan.
Next, I request Tenzin Namgila, North America grassroots, co-leader of Student for Free Tibet, will present a silent die-in visual action, a tribute to the ultimate sacrifice of Paul Loga Ranzin, then followed by long show by X-Tiva.
I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but we're gonna ask as many people who can fit inside the center stage, people who have signed up to do the die-in. If you signed up to do the die-in, you may raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're signed up to do the die-in, and come towards the middle of the stage. Maybe around 40-50 people can fit towards the center. We're attempting to do a photo action, so we're gonna try to take a very powerful photo. We're gonna try to make a photo that's gonna stand for solidarity and for unity. So basically, a die-in is when people lay down flat.